Diaz waits, and Thompson scores!
Masaba's in the middle. Wednesday here could seal it. Gassama finds Masaba.
It's now Bannon with a great ball in. Here's an opportunity. Palmer scores! Liam Palmer has scored for Sheffield Wednesday.
Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Till I Die podcast. I am Matt Johnson, and today we bring you yet another special episode with the well-renowned 1867 News, or Symon, who we've had on previously, who caused a really, really positive stir amongst the Sheffield Wednesday fan base with regards to the last interview that we did with him. We did say that we'd book in a catch-up with Symon in sort of like this international period, and we are incredibly grateful to say that Symon's joined us again. So first off, Symon, how are you? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Very good. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me back on again. Yeah, it was positive. I enjoyed it. Yeah, so yeah, thank you for having me back.
No, it's not a problem. And I think just before we kind of like move on to, I'm sure what everybody else is tuning in for today, I think one of the things that took us aback from kind of like the podcast was just how unbelievably positive the reaction was to it, and how people took on the information. I would imagine the same was similar from your end as well, Symon.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. A response far beyond what I was expecting. We just wanted to have a bit of a chat and an update on where we were. But so many people have come through and come to talk to me, you know, come to discuss things, come to offer help. I must have 50 or 60 direct messages from people taking the time to write paragraph after paragraph, explaining their situation, explaining their thoughts, and saying, please, can you anything you can do, anything that we can do, offers of help, offers of support. It really has been such a fantastically positive response, far and away more than anything I expected was going to happen.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd just like to echo those sentiments as well with regards to obviously the previous episode that we did. It's been overwhelmingly positive in a sea of an incredibly, at times, what appears a very divided fan base from the ownership that we'd kind of discussed previously. It has been fantastic to hear. But before we get onto all the light-hearted matters that we're going to talk about, Symon, quick thoughts on the Sheffield Derby. Obviously, 1-0 loss. Chris Wilder ran afterwards. Discuss.
Yeah, I mean, the Wilder's rant was quite something. But I mean, basically, the match went kind of the way we thought the match was going to go. You know, Danny Rohl has got a tune out of our players, and he's got absolutely to the maximum that we possibly can get. We kind of ran out of talent. We've hit our ceiling. You know, we are playing still, relying upon people who we signed in League One to do a League One job. And now we're trying to get out of the Championship with the same kind of players. And to a certain degree, we resorted to the same kind of style. You know, I understand why we're playing Smith and Patterson, and I love what they bring to the club. But Patterson got booked early on, and that blunted what he was going to bring. And then you've got Smith up front. And he played a very good game for Michael Smith. He held the ball up pretty well. But then you end up, the temptation is there to lump it to him. And we end up playing long balls, which they haven't been playing all season. I mean, I'd made the long journey all the way down to Norwich, and the first half was awful. But the second half, that's what we're about. That's how we played. The way that we took Norwich apart in that second half, they couldn't live with us. They couldn't live with our movement. They couldn't live with the way we were creating chances. When we were creating pressure upon them, they just simply couldn't keep us at bay. And we never got to the point where we were even coming close to putting Sheffield United under that level of scrutiny. We just didn't. So, you know, we got a pretty good example there of where we are as a club. We can beat all the rubbish teams and make them look rubbish. We can give any of the mid-table teams a real good run, and we can beat any of those quite convincingly on the day. But when it comes to the top four teams, we just outclassed. I mean, the record, I know you've dealt with it yourself, played 8, won 0, drawn 0, lost 8. You know, goals for 1, goals against 19. You know, and it sticks in the crawlers when you hear people, you know, celebrating. You have to go to work, you have to go and see your friends, and everybody has to go and take the abuse from all the United fans. And we're sick of it. We've had enough of it. And, you know, they're all gloating about it. And, you know, let's be honest, it might sound a little bit salty, but let's be honest, all the other teams at the top of the league have taken us apart. They've scored 3 goals and 4 goals past us. And Sheffield United could have and should have done that. So, yeah, they've won. They won 1-0 in a second, very narrowly fought, boring game that nobody enjoyed, where they were slightly behind in the stats and slightly fortuitous. And, yeah, they've won. They won both games. So, well done. You know, we can't take that back. But I think if Wilder had more courage, they could have had a victory scoreline that they would have been singing about for 30 years. There was an opportunity there, which they might not get again, to win 3 or 4-0 on our home turf, because lots of people stick 3 or 4 goals past us. You know, the 19 goals we've conceded against the top 4, 2 of them are against Sheffield United. So that says something, doesn't it? Everybody else, you know, sticks goals past us. You've done 1. So, yeah, you can gloat a little bit if you want to do. You won the game, fair enough. But let's not go too far. You weren't anything special. Everybody sticks at least 2 past us, and you only managed 1. But Wilder's interview, I mean, that was you know, the best part of it, wasn't it? You know, and I've given him a little bit of stick on Twitter, and it's only because I'm salty. It's only because, you know, you don't want to hear it from him. You know, he's that kind of character. I mean, you know, I've said it before. Neil Warnock, we kind of had a grudging respect for him. We kind of almost like him a little bit, you know, because you kind of understood what he was saying and why he was saying it and the way he was going about it. But Chris Wilder just has a kind of a way of saying things that just comes across as classless, you know. And without wanting to go into, and I'm into psychoanalysis, he's got a real big issue with us. You know, the thing that's disappointing is he knows what some of our fans have forgotten. He knows we're the bigger club in Sheffield. He knows we're the massive club. He knows that Sheffield United have been in the shadow of Sheffield Wednesday, just as he said they have. He knows who's the team from the 90s that played the real football, that actually achieved something. He knows who we are, and that's why he's got such a big chip on his shoulder and why he's so proud that he's been able to overtake it. And he's quite right. Yeah, 10 years ago when Chancery came, we were streets ahead of them. They were in the doldrums in League One. They were miles behind us, and we had several years and several million head start. And we've blown it, haven't we? We've fumbled it. We've dropped the ball. And he's come along and he's done what he's done. And in that interview, although there was some unhinged ranting, and, you know, he outlined exactly what we have been doing wrong and exactly what they've been doing right. He's quite correct. They've got a squad of 135 million, which is about 100 million more than our squad. That's clear to see. And he's right that they haven't done it by waving a checkbook around. You know, they've had a £1 Prince owner. So you can't say that their owner's been fantastic and Chris Wilder's the man who's masterminding it. So, you know, you've got to look at it and say, well, if Wilder and a £1 Prince can generate that, I'm damn sure that we can. You know, there's no reason at all why we should be in their shadows. So the bit I'm taking from that is he said that it will swing back the other way. And that's what we've got to happen. That's what we've got to make happen, because, you know, enough is enough. We've had enough of Sheffield United gloating at how much better they are than us. And I'm using Sheffield United as the example because obviously they're the closest rivals to us. But there's so many clubs have been rivals during the last 10 years. You know, Brighton and Sunderland, and, you know, people that we were alongside or better than, and they've just left us for dead. We are so far behind so many teams. So, you know, you look at that situation and it's an opportunity missed, I think, from Wilder's point of view. He could have gone down in history and he hasn't done. And I sincerely hope that they never get that chance again to come on our turf with a team worth £100 million more than our team. I'll tell you what was interesting as well, while we're just discussing interviews, Danny Rohl interview with Gassama. And I know Alex Miller asking the question. I think Alex Miller's been given the same information that I've been given, because I think he's written an article about it just this morning, I think it was. You know, you look at Gassama, he is our only asset in that club, in that squad. Our squad is worth a handful of, you know, 100 grand here, 100 grand there, 200 or 300 grand. There's nobody with any actual value except for Gassama, who is genuinely worth 12 or 15 million pounds this next year. And Wilder's quite correct in what he said. They've got there by developing players and selling players. Now, interesting what Danny Rohl said in the interview, and he said, effectively, it depends on what sort of club that you are. Some clubs will develop players and sell them on. Some clubs will try to keep hold of their best players. It depends what sort of club we want to be. And how telling is that? How much of a condemnation is that the mastermind behind all that we're doing doesn't know what sort of club we are? He doesn't know, what are we going to do with Jerry Gassama? He doesn't know. He's got no idea. Are we going to develop him and sell him for 12 or 15 million pounds and reinvest that money? Or are we going to try and keep him? And Alex Miller's asking the question because he knows full well what's happening, same as I did. We're doing sod all with it. The lad's on peanuts. He's on a wage of a 19-year-old who's never played professional football. He's still on that same contract. He'd say, well, okay, what are we doing about it to secure him? The answer is nothing. We've done nothing about it. We're just going to leave it. He's got a few games to go before he goes into the final year of his deal. So if you're Jerry Gassama's agent, what are you going to be advising him to go and do? We should have, several months ago, when he was clearly our first choice player, the best we had, we should have gone then, sat him down with his agent and said, right, you're getting a 500% pay rise, 600%, 700%. He really is on that little amount of money. We could give him 500% and it still wouldn't be a big contract, and give him a 4-year deal. And then we need to say, what sort of club are we? Just like Danny Rohl said, we got to sit down with his agent and say, right, Jerry, this is how it's going to go. You're now going to be our player. We're going to develop you. And in 12 months' time, we're going to get you that £15 million deal. We're going to sell you to Crystal Palace. Because if Essie's worth £15 million, you're worth every penny of that. We're going to get you your £15 million move, and you're going to get 5 times your salary again. And we're going to have some money to reinvest. We're then going to go, just like Chris Wilder was saying, we'll buy Harrison Burrows at £2 million because he's clearly worth it. Everyone could see that. We'll buy Cooper. I mean, we were in League One when Cooper was outstanding when he was playing at Plymouth. It's not like you're a genius to realise that Cooper's a fantastic goalkeeper. We all saw him. Chris Wilder has just simply gone along and picked up players for 2 million, 3 million that we could have done. You could have done it. I could have done it. You could have thrown a tennis ball into a cop and found a man who could have spotted that Cooper was a good goalkeeper. Yeah. So Chris Wilder has just done it because he had the opportunity and he got enough money to buy a £2 million player when they came along. And they at least had a plan that they could sell to them. That's what Chris Wilder was telling us, wasn't he? You've got to be able to convince Gustavo Hammer to be able to come. You've got to be able to say to Callum O'Hare, why would you leave Coventry and join Sheffield United? He wouldn't leave Coventry to go to Sheffield Wednesday with no plan, with no idea. You've got to have an identity behind your club. You've got to know where you're going. You've got to know what sort of club you are. What are you offering to them? So it's frustrating because you sit there and you listen to Chris Wilder and you think, first of all, this guy's losing it a little bit. It's a David Brent kind of interview. And then you've also got to acknowledge he's bang on the money. We've got a guy who we find irritating and he's pointing out exactly what we're doing wrong and exactly how he's got it right and exactly the reasons why their squad's 135 million and going to the Premier League and why we're worth not a lot. And next season, we'll be in a relegation battle and fighting off League One again. And, I've had enough. I know you've had enough. And everyone I'm talking to, we've had enough. Yeah. This has to stop. We're sick of being humiliated, sick of being embarrassed, sick of having everything dragged through the mud, having to turn up at work and everybody giving us stick, laughing at us, laughing at our player, laughing at our manager, laughing at our owner, laughing at our stadium, laughing at our facilities. Sick of it. It's got to stop.
I think just before we kind of like move on to stuff talking kind of like the wider club and obviously the stuff that you discussed previously, I just want to come back and touch on Danny Rohl to Southampton, because obviously you had a little bit of information surrounding kind of Danny Rohl to Southampton and a little bit kind of surrounding that deal. So what are your thoughts on that particular situation?
Yeah, it's a funny one, that one, because I mean, obviously I was the one who tweeted it out. And everybody comes back and says, oh, I'll believe it when the club says it. I'll believe it when Alex Miller says it. Usual standard stuff. And it's hard to be able to get people to understand. The club's never going to say it. No. The club can't say it. Contractually, they can't say it. Danny Rohl can't contractually say it. Southampton can't say it. It's illegal to be tapping managers up. Everybody knows that's what's happened, but they can't say it. Nobody can. Alex Miller can't say it because unless someone's going to come out there and officially say it as an esteemed and legitimate proper reporter, he has journalistic standards to be able to meet, so he can't say it. So everybody knows that's the case. None of them can say it. It's only somebody like me who could. And I know there's a heck of a lot of people who were frustrated that it's me that said it because they knew, everyone knew, we were talking to people and it was a very well-known fact. He's gone. He's off to Southampton. He's checked out. That's what's happening. The deal is going ahead. We all know. We know what the price is going to end up being. We know what the terms are going to be. everyone understands that to be the case. So yeah, I had the privilege of being the first person to send it out, but I can't pretend it was exclusive. Everyone knew. Just I was in a very fortunate position. I can say the sort of thing that other people couldn't do. The thing I want to say about that, though, is just, I mean, I know a lot of negative thing has been said about Danny Rohl, and of the only thing I've said in the last few weeks that I've ever had any pushback on was to criticise the club for criticising Danny Rohl, which I think is amazing. So the number of things I said that was potentially controversial, and not a single thing has anybody complained about or said, no, you're not right. You need to retract that. Everything was accepted as being okay. Yeah, fair point. The only thing was the pushback on Danny Rohl. And it is a difficult situation because I do understand a little bit more about the background than that's gone on, and there's nobody comes out of this situation smelling of roses. And unfortunately, our manager definitely doesn't. And I am aware of all the things that have gone on in the background. The thing I wanted to try and do is just sort of let's take Danny Rohl out of that to a certain extent and just look at the situation. If you are a top tier coach, of which he certainly is, you need a certain character and a certain skill set. You need to be diligent, and you need to be good at analysing situations. You need to be able to be meticulous in your preparation. You need to leave no stone unturned. You need to be able to have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. You need to know all the strengths and all the weaknesses of everybody in your team and everybody in your opponent's team. All these kind of things that make Danny Rohl or any other top tier coach what he is, they're exactly the kind of characteristics that mean you cannot tolerate working for Sheffield Wednesday at this moment in time. Because we, as a club, are the exact opposite of everything that makes you a top tier coach. So if Danny Rohl can't stand to work at Sheffield Wednesday in the long term, I understand it, because you could take his name out of it and put any other top tier coach. Anybody who has those kind of characteristics is not going to want to work in the chaos that is Sheffield Wednesday. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, you can throw names at Danny Rohl, and probably some of the accusations are probably fair. But the reality is our structure at our club does not support a tier one coach, does not support anybody who is talented. And when we replace him in the summer, if Chancery manages to pull a rabbit out of a hat and get another top tier coach, we already know ahead of time that man is going to be poached by another club, that he's going to walk away, that he's going to leave. He isn't going to stay for the long term because we're incompatible with elite level performance, because we are the very opposite of elite level performance in every other aspect of everything that we do. So it's difficult. And the second thing I want to say is Southampton. I mean, Southampton of all people. You know, if Bayern Munich have come along, you say fair play. You know, if it's PSG, if it's Man United, if it's Chelsea, if it's Arsenal, you know, you'd say, okay, fair play. I understand why he wants to go. But we've had our manager nicked by Southampton. You know, they're not a massive club. And people saying, well, they're a Premier League club. Well, they're not, are they? They're you know, the whole basis of their legal argument for how they're going to avoid paying us the genuine compensation is that they're not a Premier League club. They're just a Championship club. And people say, well, you know, they've had 12 of the last 14 years in the Premier League. Yeah, sure they have. But 2 of the last 3 years, they've stunk the place out. They're the whipping boys. They've been embarrassing. They've humiliated themselves. They brought shame upon Southampton. Look at their performance this year. It's pathetic. They're not a Premier League team. You know, it's only a couple of weeks ago that Arne Slot was criticised before the PSG game, and everyone roundly criticised him for playing too strong of a team against Southampton. I mean, what a humiliation that is for Southampton. People saying they didn't deserve Mo Salah because you could have sent the reserves and beaten Southampton. They're not that good. They're criticising him for trying. And that Southampton getting bullied, getting humiliated, getting laughed at, getting picked on in the Premier League, and then they turn around and look at Sheffield Wednesday and they bully us. They're picking on us. They come along and say, we're having your manager and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And we go, yeah, fair enough. You're bigger than us. You're better than us. We can't do anything to compete with that. And I'm sick of that as well. You know, Chris Wilder's having a laugh at us. Sheffield United's having a laugh at us. And even failure clubs like Southampton, who can't compete in the Premier League, who are just spending their failure relegation payments, come along and we can't defend ourselves against them either. So if we get a top tier coach, we now know that there's 100 teams in the world who can take him anytime they want. You know, every single Premier League team, half of the Championship, you know, most of the international teams. You know, you throw in things like Sturm Graz and Standard Liège. We lose players to these kind of teams. We can't compete with anybody. We've allowed ourselves to get so low that Southampton pinch our dinner money, and you know, there's just nothing we can do about it. So I'm disappointed that so many people are so accepting of that, because we should be able to compete with them. We should be able to say, no, he's our manager, and we can't. You know, they came along, they said, come and be our manager, and he couldn't wait to go. And that's that. You know, I'm fed up with that as well.
Yeah, which is again understandable from what we're now going to come on to, which was obviously the last time that you came on, you discussed potential takeover reports and interested parties. Where are we at with regarding to takeovers, interested parties? Are we any further along? Are we still stuck in the mud where we were previously? Yeah, if you could provide us a little bit of an update there. Right.
Well, it's a long story and a long answer, as most of my answers are. It's a kind of yeah, kind of a long answer. Let me take you back. I'll take you back to the beginning, just sort of kind of set the scene a little bit more. I mean, we mentioned last time we were on about some of the finances of the club. One of the things that we perhaps haven't mentioned is just the back room and the way the club is going about things, because I need to sort of set the scene for before we can sort and talk about where we are with the takeover. Because I mean, I'll spoiler alert, I'm not about to announce a takeover, unfortunately. But so which I suspect you knew was coming. But it's not as simple as that. It's not black and white. There's an awful lot more to look at and to consider before we just go with the headline. One of the major things that took place after we did the last podcast was, I mean, I mentioned already, so many people came through with messages of support. The thing that I wasn't expecting and that I was surprised by was the number of people who came to approach me in some sort of semi-official capacity. People coming and saying, well, I work at the club, or my son works at the club, my brother works at the club, I'm a friend of somebody who works at the club, or I know an agent, or I know one of the players, ex-players, ex-people who've been working at the club. I was amazed at just how many people came forward with offers of help, offers of support, and offers of horror stories as to just simply how badly run we are and how badly treated so many people were. And I didn't realize the strength of feeling that there was out there for the things that we don't tend to hear about. You know, so players, for example, you know, somebody came forward to explain the situation with the player, and I'm going to mention nobody's names at all. But, you know, some of the names you'll probably be able to very easily guess, but I'm going to mention nobody's names out of respect for those who don't want to be known because they're still at the club or still hoping to be able to get some sort of deals. The way that Chansiri goes about things seems to be a very similar sort of pattern. And everybody seems to be giving the same kind of story. So, for example, somebody will come along with an offer to be able to, let's say, buy a player. And one of the person who spoke to me, somebody took very well. He said, the problem that you have is that Chansiri doesn't really understand any aspect of what's going on. He doesn't understand football or even the processes. But primarily, he doesn't seem to understand the price of things and the value of things. And he has a deep suspicion for everyone that they're trying to rip him off, that they're not acting in good faith. So, for example, somebody will come along, let's say Forestieri as an example, as a non-controversial example. So, club comes along with Forestieri and they say, we'll give you £10 million for him. And Chansiri thinks to himself, I have no idea if Forestieri is worth £10 million or more or less. I don't know if that's a good deal. I don't know if I should sell him. I don't know if it's the right time. Haven't got a clue. And the people around him are doing no more than protecting him. They don't seem to be able to fill him in with the information he needs. So all he can do is assume that the other party is trying to rip him off. So he must be worth more than £10 million. So he says, right, I don't want 10, I want £14 million. For no reason than that. And then, of course, the other party then walks away. And then Chansiri says, oh, I probably should have taken the 10 when it was offered. That kind of scenario, which we know is true, which has already been discussed as that did take place, that seems to play itself out in every deal that he does. So we had a player who was told last year that he was no longer part of the plans and he should find himself a new club, that he wouldn't be part of the squad and he wouldn't expect to get any playing minutes. And, he owed us nothing. We owed him nothing. We owed him a debt of gratitude, if anything. So he went away and said, I want to play football. I'll find myself another club. And he did. All get sorted out, all ready, all lined up, everything all sorted. Everyone's in agreement this is going to be the case. We're going to write off his contract and he's going to go and take a pay cut because he wants to go and simply because he wants to go and play football elsewhere. Right up until, the manager gave him the last 10 minutes at Hillsborough just to say goodbye to everybody on the last match before the transfer window opened. He goes on the pitch, says goodbye to everybody, transfer window opens, and we move the goalposts. All of a sudden, what was going to be a free transfer, we now want money for him. And the club aren't paying money for him. So we sit and wait it out and wait it out and wait it out. Transfer window comes and goes and he doesn't leave. And he's sat there. And we're now paying him thousands of pounds a week to sit at home doing nothing. That's the way we've gone about everything. Now, that's a senior pro on thousands of pounds. But we're doing exactly the same thing to everybody at every level. So we have a young lad in our academy who is a good player. In under 23s, not the academy. Good player. We think he's got good prospects. We think he's going to come through. And what he needs to go on to the next stage is a loan move. So we've got him a loan move, and we've got him a loan move to a good club who are going to look after him, they're going to coach him, they're going to train him. Now, our priority should be to look after our asset, to look after our player, to be able to bring him through and show him the pathway from where he is now to how he gets to be a first-team player. And as we said, how he goes from a first-team player to get his big move to the Premier League, if that's what he thinks he's going to be able to do. We should be looking after our player. That should be our priority. We arrange a loan move for him. The other team wants to pay 50% of his wages. Now, our lads at under 23s are earning not a lot of money, 300 or 400 quid. They don't earn a fortune. So the wages are neither here nor there. The other club can only afford half of it. Now, we should be saying our priority is our player. We're contracted to pay him anyway. Let's just get the right deal for him and look after his loan move. But we don't. We go back and we say, no, we want 100% of his wages, which they struggle to afford. So they go away, think about it, argue about it, come back and say, do you know what? All right, we're desperate to get the lad in. We'll pay 100% of his wages. So what does the club do? It has to be signed off by Mr. Chansiri, as everything has to be signed off by him. We then come back and we don't want 100%, we want 125% of his wages. And everybody's exasperated, everybody's frustrated, everybody's fed up. And now the deal's fallen through because we're trying to make 100 quid. That's what we're trying to do. And the deal's fallen through. Our asset, our player, who we think will come through and be our first team player, and we've blown his deal for 100 quid. What does it, does it matter in the scheme of things? It doesn't. We've got another player who we've got a new academy manager in. He's not going to be part of things. He's available to leave. He's got himself another club sorted out. He can't go. He's sat around doing nothing. Why? Because we haven't done what is right. We haven't just let him leave. He can go to another local club because we don't want him anymore, and we're messing him about. What does that say to him? What does that say to his mates, his teammates that he's talking to? When he's discussing, does the club look after players? No, they don't. They're bothered about 100 quid. They're bothered about moving the goalposts. You're never going to get your move. So we've got a whole batch of players. We've actually got a fairly good batch of youth players coming through. There's potential, finally, for some of these to actually make it. But there's a general feeling amongst them, and for understandable reasons, they can't come out publicly and say it, but I can tell you the attitude is they do not see the pathway from where they are to the first team. And the first team players do not see a pathway from where they are to the Premier League, because that's where everybody wants to go. When you are trying to get players to commit to our club, they don't want to because they don't feel they're looked after. They feel that they very quickly cast aside, that the club isn't looking after anybody at all. They don't know where they stand. So consequently, we've got a young lad who's a midfield player who we think is going to do very well. Only a scholar, still a schoolboy. Wednesday fan all his life, really got potential to go places. He won't sign. He's not signing for us. We've got the grandson of a Sheffield Wednesday legend in the same situation. Good player, good prospect. He won't sign. He's going to sign for Sheffield United. He's a Sheffield Wednesday fan, and his granddad is an absolute Sheffield Wednesday legend, and he's going to go and sign for Sheffield United because Sheffield United have a pathway for him. They have a plan. They will look after him. So we've got a pattern here, and I'm just dealing with the players. We have a pattern here of everybody finding the same frustration. They try and get a deal done. They sort the deal out. Everybody thinks they're going to be all right. We get involved at the last hurdle and the goalposts get moved and then the deal collapses. That's how our club does it. Now, if you want me to spend 5 hours moaning about aspects of the club, I can do it. I've got that material to sit here and go on forever. Let's talk about the commercial aspect. Let's talk about the palaver involved in getting a commercial box or getting involved in a sponsorship deal. Every single aspect of our club is appalling, and we are treating people appallingly. And some of the stuff you just simply wouldn't believe. I mean, again, everybody says, let's get Alex Miller to be able to confirm it. I know Alex will be watching because he watched last time around. I've got a question I'd like Alex to ask when he next does his interview. Ask somebody at the club when you're next doing your interview, because he has access to the club that I don't. Ask them what happened to our recruitment manager in January, because our recruitment manager is there to do recruitment only 1 month in the year. Ask them what happened with our recruitment manager in the middle of January, and ask them if he feels that demotivated our recruitment team. I'm not going to tell you the details, because if I did, you wouldn't believe me. If I told you what happened and where it went on, you would say you're making that up. But I ask the club as a secondary question, do you think our recruitment manager will be our recruitment manager through the next transfer window? I'd like to know what the club have to say about it, because the way we are treating everybody is appalling. And people are coming to somebody like me to say something needs to be done here because this is terrible. We can't speak out. We're scared of speaking out. We don't want to be able to discuss the situation, but something needs to be done. People's parents, people's uncles, people's agents, people's lawyers even are saying, do you know what the club keeps doing to my client? Do you know what the club keeps doing to my nephew, my grandson? Let me explain it. We are treating everybody appallingly. Now, the reason why I'm sort of putting that in the background is because I think it's kind of an aspect of the club that I didn't really understand just how badly things were. And I think fans in general probably won't realise. We can see Hillsborough's crumbling. We can see the things on the pitch. We know there's issues with Danny Rohl, but we're never quite sure who's right and who's wrong. It really has opened my eyes how bad things are, how many people there are in those situations. So that being established, that's the kind of the method of how we go about doing deals. One thing that I was amazed about, there is information that has come to me that I didn't have previously, is just how many attempted takeovers there have been. So we'd heard about Adam Shaw, we were aware of that, but I kind of thought that was it. We'd heard of the Ginevra one recently, which we were tweeting out. There's been loads, because I've had people come through to me and say, do you know, this person actually approached the club? Do you know this person approached the club? So recently we had a current member of staff, who's still a member of staff, approached Mr. Chansiri because of his contacts in football. He was asked to give an introduction to Mr. Chansiri to see if he could be able to get a takeover. Got short shrift, never got anywhere, didn't get to first base. We've got a club legend, somebody whose name everybody will know, was asked to represent a German consortium who were interested in buying the club. And that was going to be headed up by one of his ex-teammates, who, again, a name you will know, a player who played at a fairly high level and been a manager at a reasonably high level. He was heading up this particular consortium, and they'd enlisted the help of one of our ex-legends, whose name I'm not going to mention. They'd come forward with an offer of a bid. We were contacted by somebody who'd said that they'd worked previously on behalf of a venture capital firm, who were very, very interested in being able to buy the club and got nowhere. The one the rumour that you probably heard of an ex-Premier League team owner who has sold his Premier League team and has got some money and has a reputation for being a hard-nosed businessman. Yeah. Mentioned no names, I think you know who I'm talking about. The rumours were correct, was interested, and if I'm told correctly, still will be, but he's waiting for us to go into administration. He thinks that's where the club is going, and that's the point where he's going to take over. And the same story is told by every single person. All of these people have tried to buy our club. And had it not been for our chairman acting in the way that our chairman always acts, a couple of them said, oh, we were told 250 million, in the same way as Adam Shaw had said that he was told that. So it does appear that's the kind of silly figure that people do get quoted if pressed for a figure. But none of them, any one of them at all, have got past first base. Lots of approaches have been made. Nobody can get any sense out of it. Nobody can get anywhere at all to be able to sit down and negotiate. As far as I know, nobody has been in a position where they've been able to see the books and be able to look at what's happening so as to be able to formulate an actual offer. So that opened my eyes. I assumed when I was told nobody wants to buy us, and I disagree with it. I said at the time, I know for a fact people do want to buy it. Turns out several people have tried. And I can't believe that I happen to have been told by every single person who's ever approached. If I've been told by 4 or 5, there could be several more that I don't know the details of. There's no reason why they would, every single person would come and talk to me. So it's the same scenario over and over again. People want to buy the club. People have tried to buy the club. People have approached various different people to get a way in, and nobody seems to have got anywhere, which is interesting because I've spent the last 2 or 3 weeks trying to get to speak to anybody and everybody who might be able to give us some information and might be able to help us to be able to get in, might be able to help us to be able to get to sit down at the table and talk seriously with Mr. Chancery. And, I've been very successful in doing that. Anybody you can think of who might be helpful, who might have some information, and I'm not naming names, but if you name a name, I'd probably tick that one off. Lots of people have spoke to me. People have rung up and said, oh, by the way, I know so-and-so. And I said, oh, fantastic. You don't happen to have such and such a person's mobile, do you? And, I've ended up being able to contact such a lot of people in that way. And as a result of that, just to try and gauge the situation, say, no, are we wasting our time here? Is he just simply not going to sell to anybody? And the feeling amongst people who should know is that, yeah, he does want to sell. And I've had one person say, yeah, he's desperate to sell. He wants out. I was told from an incredibly reliable source who absolutely does know that he doesn't come to Sheffield anymore. He's not interested anymore. And when he comes, he just rents his room in the Mercure and he just goes bowling. Rents out the whole bowling alley so he can be on his own and goes bowling. He's not bothered. He's checked out and he wants out, but he just doesn't know how to go about it. He just doesn't know how to negotiate. So when somebody comes along and says they want to buy the club, he assumes they want to rip him off. He assumes that there's going to be embarrassment. He assumes it's going to be a problem. So he shouts out something stupid like 250 million and they have to go away. So he doesn't cooperate with the financial information. So it's so frustrating because, I came out and said people want to buy our club and I didn't know the half. Didn't know just how many people there were who really wanted to be able to buy our club, how willing that they would have been to be able to take action and to be able to move forward, and just how many people can't get anywhere. So that's my background. That's a very sort of long-winded way of having to admit we haven't made a tremendous amount of progress. And the reason why I'm going so laboriously into saying that is I don't want people to then suddenly jump on the bandwagon and say, well, see, they haven't got any money. They weren't serious. They're not proper players. They were never going to be able to go and buy. The kind of thing they had. Yeah. The problem here is one man. The problem here is Mr. Chancery. He's very, very difficult to do a business with. And if 6 or 7 people have approached and none of them have got there, the problem doesn't lie with the consortium, does it? The problem doesn't lie with the people who are trying to buy it. The problem lies with the person who is obstructing the sale of it. So we haven't moved further forward. I am still in contact with them on a fairly regular basis. I do have lots of information. And I can honestly say I've begged and I've pleaded with them to let me release more information because I'm so excited I could burst. Their takeover, if it is able to go through, is going to be spectacular. We are never in a million years. We're going to have Chris Wilder come along and do a 15-minute interview explaining why they are so far behind us, why their training facilities much as they were proud of having 2 lots of training camps, both better than Middlewood Road, Chris Wilder's going to have to come back on again and do another interview and say, wow, we are now so far behind Sheffield Wednesday. The pendulum did swing back. We are absolutely in their shadow. We are going to soar if we can get this takeover over the line. It is fantastic. And I think a lot of people that I've been talking to have kind of got a little bit of the wrong idea as to the nature of the takeover that I was proposing before. They've kind of thought it's Adam Shaw is buying the club and he's borrowing a few quid off his mates who are rich. And that's the wrong aspect. That's the wrong understanding. You're not just simply going to have Adam Shaw replacing Dej Fonchansiri and then sitting there in Tampa Bay instead of in Bangkok, counting out how many toilet rolls we've bought and vetoing every single deal we do. The absolute opposite of that. They have a legitimate United States consortium, a group of businessmen and businesses whereby Sheffield Wednesday will fit in with a strategic and coherent plan. We will be the jewel in their crown, but they do at least have a crown already. They do have, there is something in place, and we will fit in with their existing businesses beautifully, and they will fit beautifully with us. It will work out absolutely brilliantly. And I can't tell you how desperate I am to spill the beans. And how,
I'll be honest, Simon, without wanting to cut you, obviously, I think there is anybody who is watching or listening is very, very clear in terms of, I think we can all appreciate listening to it, how you mentioned it a couple of times last time that you were on. At the core of this, you're a fan.
I want the best for Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I want a fan to buy Sheffield Wednesday. Don't we? That's what you want. I mean, I've talked to venture capitalists. I mean, it's been crazy. I've had 2 people from venture capital firms in America. One of them rung them and said, "We're very interested in Sheffield Wednesday. Do you have a financial package that you could come and present to us and pitch this? What sort of back of the envelope figures are you talking?" And I said, realistically, what I thought it would take to buy the club, I thought it would take to develop the club. And they said, yeah, that we're very interested at those numbers. Can you come across and pitch? I'm like, yeah, sure, because I pitched to venture capital for that kind of sums all day long. Yeah, no problem at all. But what the thing is? It's laughable, isn't it? And I understand that.
And you said that last time as well, that as agreed, without wanting to obviously to kind of cut in, but I think you are also very open in the fact, and you have been the entire way through, about how ridiculous this can sound. If that makes sense. Just to allow you just kind of obviously to progress it further, and hopefully coming on to the point that you were going to raise here a little bit. You've mentioned it and you've touched on it a bit. What should the club be doing differently when these approaches then land or hit an inbox, for argument's sake?
What we need to do, and what I kind of realised very quickly, is I can't just I've either got to do this properly or not. We can't criticise Chansiri for doing everything wrong if we're in the same boat. So I can't come along here and say, well, I'm just a bloke with the Twitter account. You're just a bloke with the podcast. We've either got to be professional about this or we've got to shut up, haven't we? And the number of people that approached me made me think, we need to take this seriously. And there is a tremendous amount of talent out there. Wednesday have got 50, 60, 70,000 people who are sort of associated as being fans. And amongst those, we've got people involved in finance. We've got people involved in coaching. We've got people involved in management. We've got ex-players. We've got people who are lawyers, barristers. We've got people who have got trainees in business, in business, brokering businesses, because they've approached and said, I'm a Wednesday fan. I'm Wednesday through and through. We're all Wednesday till I die. We want to know what we can do. We'll work for nothing. We'll produce it. Just say, what can we do? So we've actually spent the time getting together a little bit of a task force of qualified people, of people who know what they're talking about and have a plan and are able to develop a plan, so that should anybody want to come before us again, we don't just look like a bunch of amateurs. We actually can say, well, yeah, we do have a plan. We can pitch this, and we need to be able to show people the current football business model and how it's changed. Because Chansiri 10 years ago took over when football was just the plaything of a rich man.
Yep.
And he's attacked it on that basis. He'll just put his hand in his pocket for £8 million a year, £10 million a year. But other clubs have been much cleverer than that. They've switched on. You look at Brighton. they switched on very, very early to see how the business model had changed. You look at Brentford, and they understood how a football club doesn't have to just simply be funded by the owner putting the money in. Player values have just totally transformed in the 10 years that Chancery has owned it. So, you look at Sheffield United and you take yourself 3 or 4 of their players who played against us, and they are worth collectively more than Sheffield Wednesday. And that's the case in so many clubs. You look at Sunderland, who were sold for not a fortune, not very long ago, and they are currently worth 135, 140 million pounds. They could just sell Sirkin, Hume, Bellingham, and individually, just a couple of those are worth more than Sheffield Wednesday. So there's a tremendous opportunity to go at this in a business-like manner. And the key to this is not putting your hand in the pocket of a rich man and saying, let's chuck a few million quid at buying 30-year-olds and hope we get to the Premier League. The key to this is signing Jeddy Gassama, but not just signing one, signing 2, 3, 4 and 5 Jeddy Gassamas, the way Sunderland have gone about it, the way Brentford have gone about it, the way Ipswich went about it, the way Wolves went about it, Brentford. There are so many clubs whose model has shown us the way to go forward. And reluctantly, I'm going to have to say Sheffield United, the way that they have gone about it. You need to be investing in youth. You need to be starting out with the young players. You need to be paying your money for players who are 23 and under. And there's not a supply problem. There are plenty of 23 and under players, and they all want to play in English football. And they would all like to play for a big club like Sheffield Wednesday, so long as they can see the progression from being an under-21 to being a first-team player to getting your Premier League move. And that's a bit that we haven't done. And that's why I'm talking about Jeddy Gassama. We need, on principle, to sell Jeddy Gassama for 12, 15 million pounds. Even though he's our best player, even though we'd love to keep him, we need to just simply to prove that we can. Just simply to show this is what we can do as a club. And if you, the next Jeddy Gassama, want to come and join Sheffield Wednesday, this is your pathway. This is how we are going to get you your Premier League move if we don't take you to the Premier League ourselves. We need to be able to change it around. And we've only got to get ourselves 3 or 4 players, the value of Jeddy Gassama, and you've got your money back for the whole club. Just like Sheffield United have paid 100 million for the club and their players are already worth in excess of that. You got the club for free. So we need to be able to get our business plan in place that shows an investor who's not a Sheffield Wednesday fan, who just wants a return, just simply wants an opportunity to be able to do it. So it's a bit more like a Dragon's Den scenario where they say, look, pitch this to us, show us the management team that you've got, show us who you've got available, show us your plan, and how are we going to get a return upon our money? Well, we didn't have that because, why would we? We were just doing a podcast. But we've in a position now where we have actually got ourselves a little bit of a team together, whereby if that becomes necessary, that's the road that we can go down. And we haven't done so because I'm still saying the takeover, the United States Consortium, which is sat there waiting, is plan A and then some. But at least we are in a position where if for whatever reason that deal can't go through, because these things do happen, sometimes deals collapse, we are then in a position whereby we can be able to approach things and we can show the club where we can go further forward. But we're more precisely, we can show other investors where they can be able to go forward. And we could have an investment ready package for somebody else to be able to come in.
Understood. So what do we do next?
Right. So that's the big thing. And I think that sort of, it goes along as an extension of what I've just said there. We had this conversation 3 or 4 weeks ago, me with a Twitter account, you with a podcast, and not very much. And I'm saying we need to organise ourselves. We can do better than that. But what we need to do is we need to mobilise what I'm doing, what you're doing. We also need to mobilise what everybody else is doing, because we literally have 50, 60, 70,000 people who are Sheffield Wednesday fans. And if we can get ourselves aligned, I'm avoiding saying united, but even though that's the right word, we need to be united in our actual purpose. And as you said at the very beginning, we're not. We're divided. We have at one end of the extreme, we have the firebrands who are Chancery out, let's chuck things on the pitch, let's protest, let's print the banners. And I'm not saying anything negative about them, because at least they're doing something. At least they have some energy. At least they're trying to drive it forward. But that kind of attitude is not doesn't go down well with the other group of people who don't want to go down that road. We have a whole group of people who are more passive and don't want to be and go down an aggressive route, and consequently there ends up being friction between the two. There was a lot of friction at the last protest, and I understand the position of both sides, but that doesn't mean that that's an excuse for us to then do nothing. We still need to be able to be of one mind as a group. And you think about it, people will say Chansiri is not going to sell, you'll never get rid of him, you'll never get him out. And you're right, I understand why they're saying that. You know, we have a very difficult task ahead of us if we're actually going to be able to achieve it. But we're not a club who quits. We're a club who actually does miracles. You know, you look at us 2 years ago, we were in the playoff final and we're 4-0 down. And what did everybody say? Nobody's come back from 3-0 down, let alone 4-0 down. You're never going to do it. But Darren Moore said we could. Darren Moore stepped up and he planned for how we would go about it. How are we going to get back this 4-0 deficit? And little by little, we're going to eat away at it, step by step. And we all got 30,000 people screaming and shouting, all of us backing the team, everybody supporting what we were doing. We were all united and aligned in that target. What happened? Smith scores the penalty and we start to believe. The next goal goes in and everybody believes, little by little, and we produce a miracle. How many other teams can do that? Well, we did it. You know, and then you go through to last year, we have the worst start to a championship category, a championship campaign in history. We're doomed. Nobody ever gets back from that. There's no way you're going to get anything else other than relegated. But what happened? Danny Rohl comes in and he has a plan and he gets people behind the plan. And we suddenly get mobilising thousands of Wednesday fans and we all start to believe. And little by little, we make progress and we achieved what was a miracle. Nobody else has been able to come back from what we came back from. So you'll think about it. Coming back from 4-0 down or saving yourself from relegation after that horrendous start is significantly more difficult than persuading one man to do something that's in his best interest. That's all we've got to do. But we've got to do that in the same way as we approach the other things. We need a plan. We need to be able to say how we're going to go about this, and we need to get everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. We need to be able to get everybody united and aligned in their way, and we cannot be fighting amongst ourselves. So I'm not proposing that we start chucking tennis balls on the pitch, because I don't think I can get people to unite behind that, even though some will do it, some will agree with it. The moderate centre are not going to do. So what I'm asking, first and foremost, is that we as Sheffield Wednesday fans could have a conversation amongst ourselves, amongst our on Twitter and on social media, on your podcast, the other podcasts we're not mentioning, you know, everybody who is Sheffield Wednesday, just get a conversation amongst ourselves and let's just decide one thing only. Are we going to say we're not drawing a line? We're saying enough is enough. This club is embarrassing Sheffield Wednesday. It's embarrassing Sheffield. The way we are being run, we are embarrassing ourselves. We're getting our local rivals gloating over every last thing. And we've just simply got to sit down and take it because they're right. They are currently much better than us. All of our rivals have left us for dead. The gap between us is huge and it's just getting wider. And next season, we're going to get a mediocre manager because Chansiri has it's a 50-50 one if he gets an absolute stinker of a manager who has us in a relegation scrap, who alienates half the first team players. We've all been there. Let's not wait until it gets to that point where we're all furious and angry. Let's do it now while there is a window of opportunity. Whilst we still have this season, whilst there's still time to think about it, let's get everyone united. So I'm asking people, have the conversation. Do we think enough is enough? Do we think that Dejphand Chansiri can take us further forward? Do we think if we just gave him more time, if we just cut him a bit more slack, he'd turn things around? I don't think there's anybody out there who thinks that. So then we say, okay, does that mean then that it's the best thing for everybody that change takes place? And I think we can agree with that. Sheffield Wednesday needs new management, new ownership, new ideas, new capital. We have to get that in. We can't go into another season rudderless like we have been with no plan. with no direction, blown about by the wind. Sometimes we're blown onto the rocks. Sometimes we're blown out to sea. No captain of the ship. We've got no CEO. We've got no leader. We've got a man in Bangkok who's gone out and shut the door, run out of ideas, run out of money, and we are just simply aimless and going nowhere, getting worse. So we as fans are going to have to do something about it. Now, if this was a family member and you saw them and this was how they were living their life and they were spiraling downhill, the family who loved them and cared for them would have to get together and have an intervention, step in and take some control. Well, those who love our club, and there are so many of us, we're going to need an intervention. The club doesn't want it. It's not going to be welcomed, but it needs to be done for the greater good of all of us, from the good of Chancery, because it can't be good for his health, mental health. He gets stick, he gets abuse, he's getting, everybody's having a go at him all the time. It's not good for his financial bank balance. It's not good for his family to be wasting all that money. And it's not good for our manager, for our coaches, for our players, for our youth team players, for our fans, for our stadium, for our reputation. There is nobody who is benefiting out of Chancery running the club into the ground in the way that he does. It's better, it's the greater good for all people if we actually address this situation. So I want everybody to get together and unite and say enough is enough. We're drawing a line. This far and no further. We're going to stand shoulder to shoulder as Wednesday fans, and we're going to say we're all Wednesday, aren't we? We're going to say we're all Wednesday till I die. We're not Wednesday till Southampton rings up. We're not Wednesday till a better offer comes along. We're all here for the long run. We were here before the current owner. We're going to be here after the owner. We're going to make sure that our club doesn't get dragged through the mud any further. Stop. So if we can do that, and I think we can, I think that's reasonable. I think no matter what your opinion, no matter what your view, we can get behind saying a change needs to happen. For everybody's sake, no more of this. Has to end. So then the question is then, what are we going to do? Well, what I want to do, I want to be able to put a proposal to Mr. Chancery himself on behalf of the fans. And I think we need to demand that he gives us an answer. And I'm not anti-Chancery. I'm not trying to drive him out, not trying to get rid of him. I'm going to be able to give proposals that I think are fair. But I want him to pick one of three options. So option one is show us your plan. Show us what you are going to do for next season that's going to take us forward. Not just avoid relegation, but take this club further forward. How are you going to close the gap with Sheffield United and our other rivals and not allow that gap to get wider? What are you going to do differently to what you've been doing? Because as far as I can see, he had a plan in 2015-16 to throw money at it, and for the last 8 years hasn't had a plan. So option one, Mr. Chancery, show us your plan. And if you've got a plan, we're going to back it. We as fans will get behind you and we will back your plan because we just simply want the good of the club. We want the club to move forward. So show us your plan and we're going to get behind you. Now, you know, I know, everyone else knows he ain't got a plan. We know that. He's not going to come forward with a plan. But we're not trying to hound him out. If he's got one, we'll hear it. All right? So let's say he hasn't got a plan, but he's still interested in the club. No problem. Option two, option B. I've just said there, we have a task force and we have a plan. We have a way to take this forward. We can show you the models that we've analysed of other clubs. We've got fully costed plans. We know what it costs to buy them. We know what the players are there. We've got identified sample examples of players, hindsight examples, and examples right now of players who we can target, ways that we can go further forward, how the club should be structured based upon how successful clubs are running it. If he doesn't have the ideas and he doesn't have the management structure in place to produce the plan, don't worry, because you've got 60,000 Sheffield Wednesday fans. Lots of them have got some really good ideas. We will give the plan. So give us 14 days and I will fly to Bangkok with the plan and we will show you how it should be. Now, it's not going to be free. You're going to require a certain amount of money to prime the pump. I don't want paying, and all the other people don't want paying. We just want to we love the club. We want to take it forward. But if you've got a little bit of money to prime the pump and sort out that what needs to be done, the list of 100 things that need to be sorted more or less immediately, brilliant. we'll back that plan. We'll get the fans behind that. So option 1, show us your plan. Option 2, execute our plan. No problem at all. Realistically, he's not going to go for that either, is he? He won't let. He's never going to do that. He's never going to let us show us the plan, and I don't think he could finance it if he could. But the offer is there. We're not trying to be unreasonable. If you've got a plan, let's do it. If he says he doesn't have a plan and he doesn't want to implement anybody else's plan, then the only option that is left, the only honourable option that is left, is to step aside. Put the club up for sale. Come out publicly and say, you're quite right. The best thing for everybody is for the club to be sold. The club is available at the proper, fair market price, a realistic price for the club in the condition it's in, and I will cooperate with the buyers when they come forward. I will make the books available to them. I will show them the information that they need to have to be able to formulate a proper takeover. I won't stand in the way. And if that's what he goes with, there is a window of opportunity whereby we can ask fans to call a truce. Let's stop slagging him off, because the point has been made. Everyone's seen it now. We don't need to have any more pointing out how bad Mr. Chancery is and how useless he's been running the club. The prosecution rests its case. We know now. If he will say, I'll step aside, quite right, we will then support that plan. We will then support him, and we will do our best to thank him for the 10 years of effort that he's put in, thank him for the money that he's going to have to write off, shake his hands and say, at least you did the right thing at the end. You're welcome to come back from Thailand anytime and visit us. Don't rush, but you are welcome to come back. We'll post the elephants to Bangkok, no problem at all. But thank you for doing the right thing in the end. And we can part as close to amicably as is possible. As close to friendly as we possibly can, because that's very important. We're not going to get anywhere by trying to humiliate the man. He's not a man who's going to take that. That's his character. He won't. And I understand why he doesn't. So there's an offer there from us to call a truce and to try and have an amicable partnership. If he will step up and say, you're quite right, I can't take this any further forward. I've run out of energy. I've run out of ideas, and I've run out of money. I will step aside. So I think that's something that everyone can get behind. First thing, we all agree enough is enough. And then we all get together and we say, let's put that to Mr. Chancery. Show us your plan. Let us execute. You execute our plan, or you step aside. What we cannot tolerate and what we will not tolerate is the fourth option, which is a rudderless waste of time, humiliating and dragging our club lower while Hillsborough crumbles, our squad crumbles, and our players and fans are treated abominably. That's not one of the options. You cannot choose that. We will not accept that as an option. You've got to go with one of the first three. So I'm calling upon everybody who is a Wednesday fan, yourself with your podcast, and anybody else who's there, the journalists, Alex Millen, Joe Cran, Alan Biggs. Let's see if we can get behind, unite people behind this in a non-aggressive way. We're not trying to force him out. We're trying to say, let's take this forward. Let us help you, or step aside. All our, sort of ex-players, the legends who are there, let them step up. And particularly, I want to hear what Wednesdayite have got to say about it. I want to see what the supporters club have got to say about it. Rainbow Owls, Armed Forces Owls, New York Owls, and wise old Owls. We've got all manner of supporters clubs. What do you say about it? Put that to your members. Discuss that amongst yourselves. Can you show us your support? Can we all stand shoulder to shoulder and actually take this club further forward? And every single one of us unitedly say, we're on the same team. Mr. Chancery, which one is it? A, B, or C? Take your pick, and we'll support any of the three.
Understood. And I think what's really clear from that, Simon, is yourself and the people who you've been working with have a clear vision for how things should move forward. And again, it is really clear to see just how passionate you are about it.
Thank you.
But again, it's...
We love the club, don't we? You do. I
Yeah.
do. And so many people have rung me who said the same thing. I'll work for free. I don't mind it. Just tell me what I can do to help. I know this person. I have this contact. So many people. And I felt bad. for not taking it so seriously previously, because so many people have said, please carry on doing this. We're desperate. We need this. This can't carry on. So many people want it. And it's for the greater good of all, including Mr. Chancery. It really is. This is a great club, and we can be a massive club again. We want to get to be a massive club again. We want to be able to take on Sheffield United and compete with them toe to toe. And let's be honest, we want to be able to compete with Manchester United and Arsenal like we used to do in the old days. We want to have our chance to be able to get back there. We're sick of sitting in a crumbling, rusty old stadium. Has to stop.
My question is, I suppose, off the back of things that you've said there, do you have any sort of, as a group, and I know this is a difficult question to ask, do you have any sort of a time frame for, you spoke about responses from the club, you spoke about proposals, and actually having some sort of a semblance of a business model, whether that be short, medium, long term. Do you have some sort of a response time, say for argument's sake, that would fit, in your opinion, fitting for the club to come out and say, comply with those things? Because I agree with you. I think it is really important at this point, more so than ever, that the club is transparent about a plan.
They can't ignore us. They must respond.
Yeah.
They can't just ignore that.
It was just surrounding have you got any idea of a time frame surrounding how long? Because as you've said, it's almost a really unique window.
We have a brilliant window of opportunity, don't we?
Yeah.
Because we know what's coming. We're going to have a transition. The manager will be gone. We're looking for a new manager. We're looking for new options. And we also know, without wanting to get back into negative, if we have this conversation in November, there's a 50-50 chance we'll be somewhere near the relegation zone, and it'll be and we won't be able to have a polite conversation. And I'm trying to do this nicely. I'm trying to do this amicably, trying to have a polite conversation with Mr. Chancery and say, I would really like to shake your hand and say, thanks very much for your effort. And there is an opportunity to do that. So don't drag it out. Don't make it hard work. Don't just stay here and outstay your welcome until we say, well, he's ignored us. He wouldn't do it. Now we're going to have to take the gloves off. We don't want to go down that road. People aren't comfortable. We shouldn't have to do. So in terms of timescale, I think the first thing is the ball's in our court as supporters. I would like, you have a tremendous influence as a podcast to discuss with supporters. Let's get our supporters united. We can tweet out, we can go on Instagram, we can say enough is enough, answer the question, pick which one of the three. We can all tweet that immediately. We can get Wednesday to come out with a statement and say, yeah, we're broadly in support of that question. We say enough is enough. We want to hear the answer to the question. The supporters club can do that. How long it takes them to organise that and get that sorted out, I don't want to be unreasonable and say you got to do it immediately. Might take a week or 2, 3 weeks. I don't know. It might take a little bit of time, but let's get the supporters together so we have a mandate to demand an answer. I don't expect Mr. Chancery is going to get on the phone tomorrow. He might do. He did last time, by the way. The last podcast, I had a phone call the very morning after it. So you never know.
You've got nothing on tomorrow, Simon. Put it that way.
Yeah, might happen. And I sincerely, genuinely hope he does. Hope he comes through and says, do you know what? Yeah, you're right. Fair play. You're right. I need to stand aside. I'm so pleased if he would do that. But, I'm not holding out hope. So in terms of timescale, we have this window. We've got 8 more games of this championship season, which, we could win all 8 games and we could get back into the top 6. Let's not rule it out. It could happen, but realistically, we kind of know where we're going to be. We're going to be managerless, and we're going to have an old aging squad, which needs to be supported. And we also know our transfer recruitment policy isn't fit for purpose. Yeah. So we've got a summer transfer window coming up, which we already know we're going to drop the ball on, because that's it's clear as day. So we need things sorted out as soon as we possibly can. Immediately would be great, but these things don't work that fast. So I think we just simply need to get the fans behind it first and foremost. Do we have a mandate, or is it just you and me talking? Yeah. If it's everybody getting behind it, then we have a mandate to go and say, right then, Mr. Chancery, answer our question. We insist upon that. and then see where he goes. And I'm genuinely hoping he responds, and we don't ever have to get to the point where I say, right, you've had enough time, now we're going to do this and that. I genuinely hope he takes the opportunity to do this amicably as soon as possible.
Yeah, which is, I think, understood. And I think also from everything that you've outlined, it is clear that yourself and the people who you've been working with do have a proposal in place to discuss kind of like the potential taking forward of the club, which is very refreshing to hear as a Sheffield Wednesday fan. I mean this very nicely, Simon. It will have been taken from other successful clubs who have used similar business.
Oh yeah,
models.
we're just copying homework.
Yeah, but that
it's not rocket science, is it? You know what I mean? I know it's not rocket science. You can see how there are clubs to study that have done very, very well.
And that's the point that
Chris Wilder can do it.
Yeah, and that is the point that I'm getting at, is this is what you are speaking about here. Similar to the last part of the podcast, which you've done so well in framing again. It's nothing groundbreaking. And it is something that I think is genuinely, I mean, obviously as listeners and supporters of the football club, you are able to make up your own mind on, which is really, really good. But I just wanted to leave it in absolute no doubt.
It's non-controversial. We can all agree enough is enough.
Of course.
We can all agree that. I'm sure we can. We can all agree, let's not carry on the same. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting a different result. We can all agree on that, can't we? That's not controversial. And that's the first step. Let's get us all to agree.
Okay. Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you for having me.
Coming on again, and again providing kind of not just an update on other things that have happened since the last pod, but also kind of discussing the wider situation surrounding the club and how, as Sheffield Wednesday fans, we can look to progress this and move this forward. I do really appreciate you giving up the time again to discuss this. And again, I think the one thing that I would just like to stress is it is very clear to see, listening to you speak, just how passionate and how much you as an individual care about the football club. And I don't think that was ever, in any sort of doubt. But I think it is also really clear to see from what you've discussed here, that there is people around the football club, fans in this case, who do have a solid foundation and a plan for how to progress this forward, which is wonderful to hear. And it does provide, again, a glimmer of hope.
You know what, Matt? We can do this.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It has to happen. For everybody's good, it has to happen. And it's going to happen because we're not going to stop until it does. We can do it and we will do it. All we've got to do is persuade one man to do something that is in his best interest. That's easier than coming back from 4-0. That's easier than rescuing yourself. We can do it. We can do miracles. So I'm sure we can convince one man to just simply step aside when he's run out of money, run out of ideas. We can do it, and we won't stop until we have.
We'll leave it on that note, Simon. I think that's a really fitting end to it. So thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you so much all for listening. Yes, please catch us obviously on Wednesday on the debate shows and the Sunday shows as well. YouTube, X, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much for listening all. Take care.